Welcome back to the Empowered Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Bennetts, and today we're going to challenge the way you think about money, freedom, and your future. My guest is Jordan Adler, a legend in the network marketing world, international speaker, and the best-selling author of Beach Money, a book that's transformed the lives of thousands of entrepreneurs. Jordan's not just talking theory, he's lived it. From humble beginnings and early failures, he's built a life centered around residual income, contribution, and freedom. Today, we unpack what beach money really means, why traditional education often leaves us financially illiterate, and how Jordan went from broke to earning over $20 million, not by grinding harder, but by working smarter and thinking differently. Whether you're an entrepreneur, side hustler, or just someone who wants more freedom in your life, this episode will open your mind and fire up your purpose. Let's dive in. Hello, Jordan. How you doing today, sir?
Great, Andy. It's great to be here. Good to see you.
You bet. It's great to see you as well. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. We have a mutual friend in Shane, which has also been on the podcast, and he connected us up. And when we were talking about our conversation afterwards, he said, "You've got to talk to Jordan. He's got such a great story." So thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time. I'm very excited about this conversation.
You know, I met Shane when he was a little boy. I worked with his father at a company for 13 years, and
Okay.
we were very, very close friends. So, and then later on in life, I got to know Shane as an adult, and we've been doing some things together and just extending our friendship on. You know, still great friends with the family. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Good people for sure. For sure. So awesome. Well, so much to cover. I can't wait, like I said, to dive into this, but you wrote a book called Beach Money, and you kind of coined that phrase. So I would love to know, what does beach money mean to you now compared to when you wrote the book?
So I wrote the book actually over 20 years ago, just a little over 20 years ago. And the truth is, it hasn't changed that much.
Okay.
In fact,
Gotcha.
I don't know that it has changed. It's beach money is really a metaphor. And most people, when they hear the term beach money, they think of what it is. And that's, you know, the ability to be able to be anywhere in the world and create an income stream that allows you to have some level of freedom in your life. Most people are owned by their jobs, most people, and they have to, you know, set an alarm clock and go to work, and there's nothing wrong with that to pay the bills.
Sure.
But I'm just like you at my age, I've met many people that, you know, get into their 50s, 60s, and 70s that are terrified because they don't have any savings, or they have very little savings, and they know they can't live off of an $1,800 Social Security check.
Sure.
But beach money is something that someone can start when they're young, and they can grow an income stream that will continue to pay them, throw money into their bank account every month, whether they go to work or not. It's a model that exists out there, and most people growing up like I did aren't introduced to that model. The ability to have a leveraged income, for a non-linear income.
There you go.
Versus a linear income is where you're trading time for money, and non-linear income is where you work one time and get paid hundreds of times for it. And there's lots of ways to do that. There's many different ways to do that. Some of them require huge upfront investments, and some require almost no investment.
Okay. Sounds like that's something we can dive into a little bit further. So very good. Thank you so much for that. That helps a lot to kind of set the stage for some things that we're going to be talking about. Like I said, I got a whole list of questions, so I hope you got some coffee there to cleanse your palate every once in a while.
I've actually already drank my coffee today, but I'm really being entertained by the way that you're doing this on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun. I'm kind of a techie guy, so I use this to kind of capture some notes, and then we kind of move on. So I'll do my best to not make it distracting, but I'm kind of a note taker anyway. So this is a perfect meeting of the worlds where I can have conversations, kind of take some notes down and move forward. So you bet.
Great.
Awesome. So Jordan, let's kind of backtrack all the way to the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and different high points in your life that kind of led us to this point.
Absolutely. So I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. The home I grew up in was a 1,200 square foot home. My parents and my two sisters. My parents were married for 55 years. They had a relatively happy marriage. We had a good childhood. South suburbs of Chicago, my dad made $28,000 a year at his peak.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And he required all three of us to go to college, and he saved his entire life for each of us to go for 1 year. And then we had to figure out how to pay for the rest of the college. And so none of us took out a loan. We all worked. I worked my way through college as a resident advisor and a night clerk, graduated, and with some birthday gifts, $250, a guitar, and a suitcase. Right out of college, I moved to Arizona, where I knew one person, an ex-girlfriend. And the reason I moved to Arizona was because I got a degree in landscape architecture. Not because I was interested in landscape architecture, but because I met some cool people that were playing Frisbee one night around a fire. And I asked them what they did, and they said they were in the landscape architecture program. So I jumped into that and moved to Arizona with a guitar, a suitcase, and $250, and started applying for jobs and ended up working lots of different jobs over the next few years. Eventually landed as a draftsman for a couple private firms, and then the state of Arizona, and then the city of Phoenix, and never got paid much money. In fact, the most I ever made in the working world, interestingly, was the same that my dad made at his peak, which was $28,000 a year. I was working for an airline after the whole drafting. I decided landscape architecture wasn't for me. I met a guy at the gym that his father was starting an airline in Phoenix called America West Airlines, which you probably remember.
I do. Yep.
They had one plane, and I was the 180th employee in my early 20s. And I started working with them, and the most they paid me was $28,000 a year, and then they filed bankruptcy and cut my pay down to $14,000 a year. So at the age of 34 years old, I was making $14,000 a year. I had no savings. I had $36,000 in credit card debt on 22 credit cards. I was living in an enclosed garage. My rent was $200 a month. I had two roommates that lived in the house. I was in the garage, and I had a Jeep that had been broken down for 2 years and didn't have the money to fix the Jeep. And so, but I was still working at the airline. I chose to keep my job at $14,000 a year. And so I was continuing to rack up credit card bills, paying the few bills that I had. And all during this time, I was an entrepreneur. I was reading books about entrepreneurship, the ones that I could find. And I actually picked up a book at a garage sale by a guy named Don Faila named The 10 Napkin Presentations. And I learned about leverage and residual income in that book. And that book, I paid 25 cents for it, and it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life. And I started getting involved in different entrepreneurial things. And that was part of the reason why I had $36,000 in credit card debt, is I was investing in small businesses. Over the course of 10 years, I tried 11 different network marketing companies, never made a penny like most people, never signed up a single person. I was learning that I was trying to learn by doing, and I was listening. I had a little yellow Sony Walkman, and I was climbing up and down the mountain listening to audio tapes. And then in 1992, I joined my 12th network marketing company. And that's where I met Shane Mims' dad.
Okay.
And in that company, while I was still living in the garage, I started to get some traction. I kind of cracked the code. Simple things like how to make a list, and how to set up an appointment, and how to give a presentation, and and then follow up, the process of follow up and building relationships and all that stuff. And I cracked the code, and I built my business. There was a little coffee place called Coffee Plantation on Mill Avenue on the ASU campus, Arizona State University campus. And I would go on lunches, and I'd go into that little coffee place on lunches. I'd grab somebody from the airline that was in the process of losing their job, because we were laying people off at that time, sit them down, and we'd order coffee, and I'd talk to them about my business idea. And over the next 13 years, I built a very, very large business and made millions of dollars. That was my 12th network marketing company, after not signing up a single person in my first 11 companies in 10 years. And that's the condensed version of the story. Prior to that, I was eating I could buy 3 boxes of macaroni and cheese for $1. And sometimes I wouldn't even buy milk. I'd use water because I couldn't afford the milk. I mean, it was real bad. Yeah. Once in a while, I'd buy a can of tuna fish to mix in there, and that would last me, three boxes of macaroni and cheese would last me for almost 2 weeks. with the tuna fish,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how I was living my life. And then
Wow.
everything changed. In fact, I was actually earning $34,000 a month and still living in the garage because I was traveling around the country
Mm,
building my business, and not really the least important thing was moving, like getting to
mm,
a new place.
hmm.
I just was building my business,
Right.
focused on that. So yeah.
I love that. And I'm sure that you've read lots of books and heard different stories about that of entrepreneurs that are so kind of dead set focused on building their business that the things that a lot of people equate with success and that kind of stuff are kind of like whatever. Like it doesn't necessarily. I can still live in a garage because that's just my home base because I'm doing all this other stuff. So I mean, it's one of those things you have to lay the groundwork and kind of put in the hard work ahead of time, and then you can enjoy that on the back end while
Well,
you're kind of building the business. Yeah.
it was just a priority to build the business and not to
Sure.
move. Like I eventually,
Right.
eventually, of course, I moved out of the garage and got a nice place in the forest, and
Hmm.
my first dream home, and then
Hmm.
got the Jeep running, sold that, bought a couple of nice cars, and then eventually, within a matter of a few years,
Hmm.
I was traveling. I was traveling all over the world in private
Hmm.
jets, and I mean,
Wow.
living a really amazing lifestyle. Which my dreams have shifted and changed since then.
Hmm.
My priorities have changed some because I was in my 30s back then, and now
Hmm.
I'm in my 60s.
Hmm.
So you look at life a little bit differently. The things that you spend many many years accumulating stuff. Most
Sure.
people do. And then at some point you go, you know what? I don't want the responsibility to manage all this stuff. I just want to get
Right.
rid of it
Right.
and and live my life and be free and enjoy life.
Right. Right. Well, and I know that relationships are a big are very important to you, both personally, obviously, but also in building your business. It sounds like that's from reading stuff about your bio and that kind of stuff leading up to that. And I think you even mentioned that about cracking the code, realizing that it was about connecting with people and connecting with their heart, helping them to dream bigger and kind of have that crystallized, right? Rather than just kind of this ambiguous thing up in the ether. It's like, okay, let's talk specifically about that. What's your why? How can we get you there to it? Yeah, would love to kind of. I'm trying to think of like a direct question around that because
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, so I read, I was reading books, and I have a lot of books, and a lot of books that I've read one or two chapters and then ended up putting them in my bookshelf. I've got
Mhm.
bookshelves everywhere with books, lots of
Mhm.
books everywhere. But once in a while, I'll pick up a book and I'll read it all the way through because it'll grab my attention. One of
Mhm.
those books was How to Sell Anything to Anyone by Joe Girard. He was in the
Okay.
Guinness Book of World Records for being the number one salesman in the world. He passed away in his 90s a few years ago. I never met him, and I only read one of his books. He's written a bunch. He didn't have a high school degree, but he was, Guinness Book of World Records called him the greatest
Mhm.
salesman in the world.
Mhm.
He was a car salesman, and
Mhm.
he would go into his car dealership in Detroit, and every day he would go in, there would be a line of people, even in the winter, waiting for the doors to unlock to come in
Wow.
and buy a car or sell a car to Joe, either buy a car
Mhm.
from Joe or sell a
Mhm.
car to Joe. And he'd have lines of people coming to see him, and they didn't need to be sold. Most car
Mhm.
salesmen are out there selling.
Correct.
They walk in to buy or to sell.
Mhm.
They don't need to be sold. And the
Right.
reason is because every single person that Joe met, he would make people feel very, very special and important.
Mhm.
And he would stay in touch with them over their life. So if you
Mhm.
met Joe or if you bought a car from Joe, you would receive a card in the mail from him.
Mm.
And there would be short cards written in handwriting, his handwriting mostly in the beginning. Eventually, it got to the point where he was doing tens of thousands of cards a month, and he hired a whole team. He had 14 people. That's all
Mhm.
they did all day long was handwrite Joe's cards and mail these
Wow.
cards out. 1 month. Oh, and by the way, you wouldn't just get one card from him. You'd get a card from him every single month for as long as he knew you.
Wow.
So here's what would happen when you were ready to buy a car. First person you would think of is Joe.
Right.
If
Right.
your daughter needed a car, you'd think of Joe. Joe treats me good. Joe cares about me. Joe
Mhm.
understands the car business, and Joe stays in touch.
Right.
And I learned from that book. That was one of the books. And then I read a book by Tom Hopkins, who you may or may not know. Tom, he's in his probably close to 90 years old now, but he used to do sales trainings with 20, 30,000 people. I went to his boot camp back when I was in my early 30s. And
Mm-hmm.
Tom wrote a book that sold millions and millions of copies called How to Master the Art of Selling.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a whole chapter called The Thank You Note Habit. And he
Okay.
talked about how he made millions in real estate because every time somebody did something nice for him or bought something from him, he'd send them a thank you note in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just the mail, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just treating people special and
Sure.
giving and being present with people and giving and listening to people
Mm-hmm.
and attempting to understand them. And
Right.
when you do that, and then the other part of it is staying in touch with them over the long haul, whether they're
Right.
buying from you or not. So you're not doing
Sure.
it because you're trying to get something from them. You're
Exactly.
you're looking for
Yep.
opportunities to give to them.
Right.
And in doing that, when somebody's ready, they think of you.
Right.
So, you know, uh, Brian, not Brian Tracy, Harvey McKay, in his book Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive, he said, if you want to predict the future of someone's income, look at the size of their Rolodex. And, you know, if you're under 40, you probably don't know what a Rolodex is. You can get them at the Goodwill. But we used to have Rolodexes. What you've seen them before. They're on a spool and you used to put business cards in them.
Yep.
And it's true. Like the most successful people that you know are the people that have financially free lifestyles and have, you know, large, successful businesses and all of that. They have a large Rolodex. And today our Rolodex is in our phone, but it's not just
Sure.
having people in your phone, but it's like, what are you doing with those people?
Right.
To maintain that relationship long term. So a lot of it has to do with, you know, being really consistent, and having multiple touch points with people over the course of their life, so that you're not just most salespeople. What they do is they have one conversation, they try and sell that person on whatever it is they're trying to sell, and if the person says no or is not interested or ghosts them or whatever, that's the end of it. Then they're off
Right.
they're buying leads to go sell somebody else.
Sure.
Uh, the big money is in the big money is in the long-term relationship. The reason why, you know, there's a lot of realtors out there that are very, very successful, even during down markets.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to sell. They just get referrals every single day from people that they've built relationships with. And most of the time when it's a referral coming from someone, you know, those people don't need any kind of sales. There's no selling involved. They're just ready to buy.
Right.
You build when you have a long-term strategy like that, you know, you can build a very, very successful business.
I love it. I love it. Very good. I found the question I was wanting to ask for you. So obviously
Yeah.
everything that you just said, all about relationships and the importance of that, and the fact that you know, no one wants to be sold to. So if you're building relationships, you're top of mind, you're staying in touch with them just because you genuinely care for them. You've probably heard the know, like, and trust. I actually did a video a while ago talking about the fourth aspect, right? Know, like, trust, and the fact that they know that you care for them. So if you add all four of those, there's pretty much a guaranteed that when it comes time for them to buy this or that, you are top of mind because you have established the fact that you care for them beyond just you know, being a sale for them. So absolutely. Speaking of relationships, though, I'd love to hear what was a really surprising connection that opened a major door for you. You've listed quite a few
Oh,
people, very, very influential people in this space. What was one that opened a door that you did not see coming?
oh, absolutely. So I was at a networking event 20 years ago
Okay.
In Phoenix, Arizona,
Okay.
and an old construction worker that I knew saw me and said, "Oh, wait right here, Jordan. I got somebody I want to introduce you to." He runs across the room and he grabs this 22-year-old kid named Nate Dominguez, and he introduces me to Nate. He says, "You need to know this guy." And
Okay.
so we instantly we became friends, and we decided to go to lunch the next week. We went to
Mhm.
lunch. Eventually, I met his new wife, Kelly. They had just gotten married. They had no kids. And I found out his father was the CEO of BNI at the time and had
Oh,
been
wow.
Dr. Ivan Meisner's his father had been Dr. Ivan Meisner's business partner for many years. Well, I had just joined a BNI chapter, Business Network International. There's
Right.
today over 10,000 chapters around the world. I had just joined a chapter, so we had that to talk about. But I was brand new in the chapter. I knew really nothing about the organization, just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built a relationship with Nate. I built a relationship with his father eventually, and then they ended up having kids. And I'm Uncle Jordan to their three kids. One of
That's
them's a
awesome.
teenager now, and I go to their kids' sporting events and things like that. But here's what happened. I I was in this BNI chapter, and I found out they had thousands of chapters all across the United States. And I thought, what if I had one of my team members in every one of those chapters?
Mm,
I started promoting BNI.
right.
And I was never a member. I was a member of BNI, but there was no financial benefit to me doing that other than if I could get people from my team into BNI chapters. And I had a brand new team. It was a brand new company I just signed up with. And I started promoting it. And within 1 year, we were in 250 of their chapters. And I became the largest customer of BNI in their 35-year history, which got the attention of their founder. So I introduced their founder to our founder, and that got me on the national stages. Here's the bottom
Wow.
line.
Yeah.
That one relationship with Nate has led to $230 million in business to our company. One relationship. It's usually one person that changes the trajectory of everything for you. And I can go back through my career and I can say, these are the people that changed everything for me. But the only way you meet those people is if you're meeting lots of people
Right. Right.
and getting to know lots of people. So, and you never know when that person's going to emerge. I could tell you probably 10 stories like that of people that
Hmm.
I met on my path that
Hmm.
changed my life. You know,
Right.
Jackie Ulmer was another one. I could
Incredible.
name a bunch. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And to your point, you don't know when that's going to happen, right? So you have to be on, you have to be constantly putting yourself out there, constantly meeting new people because you're not, you know, it could be the very next person, and you
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
that until you get there. So, yeah,
And
uh, the importance of consistency and getting out there and talking to people. Yeah.
as human beings, we tend to think in a linear fashion. So
Hmm.
if you're going to a workshop or you're doing some life planning or whatever, you're usually thinking like, these are the steps that I need to take to be
Hmm.
successful. I need to do step
Right.
one, step two, step three, step four. But it never happens that way.
Hmm.
Success happens when you meet the right person at the right time. Think about it. Everything great in your life, everything happened because you met the right person at the right time.
Hmm.
So what does that tell you? That means that your mission should be to be out there meeting people.
Right.
However you do it, even online. Like if your thing, if you're more into social media and all that kind of stuff, then it's just
Hmm.
about making connections with people online. But it's the
Hmm.
collaborative relationships, it's the partnerships, the joint ventures, the um,
Hmm.
affiliations that create rapid growth in a business.
Hmm.
When you
Yeah.
get the right partner at the right time,
Right. I
or
love it.
the right customer at the right time.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know,
Yeah. No,
it's usually a small sliver of your customers that represent the largest percentage of your revenue growth.
absolutely. Absolutely it is. So, I love this. This is so good. Again, I'm trying to bounce around all my questions because I want to make sure we get through all of them. But um, you've mentored countless people, obviously through the book and through all of the speaking engagements and the sales leading and that kind of stuff. Made millions of dollars, that kind of stuff. What's one mindset shift? I'm trying to think of like,
Oh,
people are going to be watching this that are like, okay, I want to have the life that Jordan's lived. What was one or two or three, if you want to share more than one, that really helped you to get to where you're at right there, so people that are earlier on in their journey can kind of follow a similar path.
yeah, the biggest one by far was, everybody's always like asking 11 company, like, people would say, why didn't you quit after 11 companies in 10 years? Why didn't you
Mm,
quit?
right.
And
Yeah.
the truth is I quit over and over and over again. So I get
Mm,
involved with the company. I would go out and talk to some people and they would be negative, or they tell me those things don't work, or you're never going to make any money at that, or
right. Yep.
oh, why don't you just go get a job? Even my father was saying that. He hammered me
Wow.
with get a job, just get a job. I have a job, Dad. I don't want a job anymore. I want to have my own
Right.
business. I want to be successful and have a residual income and all this.
Sure.
And the truth is, I would join the company, I'd be involved for 2 or 3 months, and I would get a lot of negativity, and I would quit. And then 6 months later, I joined another company, and I did that. And it dawned on me when I started meeting people that were successful in the business. Most of them had been with their companies for 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And there were certain things that they were doing, but
Mhm.
one of the things I figured out is that quitting is not a great strategy for success, and that entrepreneurs are resourceful. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers. When an entrepreneur has a big problem, they don't quit. They figure
Mhm.
out a solution to the problem. They either go over it, through it, or around it.
Mhm.
They figure it out. And so I started experiencing big problems when I joined my 12th company, just like I did with the first 11. The difference was, and I was actually remember standing on a doorstep in Peabody, Massachusetts, doorstep of a home,
Mhm.
before cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone yet. I think cell
Okay.
phones were just coming out at the time, and
Mhm.
I didn't have one. And I was standing on a doorstep in a blizzard, not dressed for it. I lived in Arizona. I was in Peabody, Massachusetts. I was supposed to meet some people there, and nobody showed up because of the snowstorm. I came a couple thousand miles, and they didn't show up because of the
Oh
snowstorm.
my. Wow.
And that was one of a few things that happened, and I had to make a decision. Am I going to quit again?
Mhm.
This was my first team. Like, it was a small team, but it was my first team. And I flew across the country with money that I didn't have to go see
Mhm.
these guys. And they weren't even there when I showed up. And
Right.
I gave me an excuse why they weren't there because of the blizzard.
Mhm.
And I had to decide at that point, am I going to quit again? And it
Mhm.
was a conscious decision.
Right.
And I went through the first 3 years were really tough with that company. In fact, after a year, I was only earning $180 a month. After 1 year, $180 a month, and I was spending over 1,000 a month, trying to build my business, which I didn't have. I didn't have that money. It was going on credit cards.
Right.
By the end of the second year, I was making about $2,800 a month. By the end of the third year, I was making $34,000 a month, and I was still living in the garage.
Wow.
But it just took time to get some
Right.
traction. So I coined a phrase: "Don't quit on a bad day." Most
Mm.
people, the days that they quit are days when they're struggling, days when they're feeling unmotivated, days when they're depressed, days when they're discouraged. I just decided I'm never going to quit on a bad day. So when I'm having a bad
Mhm.
day, a bad week, or a bad month, I just keep plowing through. In fact, those are the days that I try, even though it's difficult, it is difficult, but I try and turn up the volume a little bit on the days that I'm
Mm.
really feeling down.
Right.
I usually will pull out a journal and I'll write down what I'm grateful for.
Mhm.
I will write down some I am statements, positive I am statements, even though when I'm writing them, sometimes I don't believe them at that moment.
Right.
Then I'll go and I'll do some work. I'll set up an appointment. I'll follow up with somebody. I'll send some cards out. Whatever.
Mhm.
I'll do some things that are I'll take positive action.
Right.
What happens is when you do that consistently, even when you're not feeling it, it's real easy. Like, we're sitting here and, we say, you make a decision, I'm not going to quit on a bad day, until you're having a
Mhm.
bad day. And then it's really easy to quit.
Sure. Yep.
But the people that make it are the ones uh, that they build their business not based on how they're feeling.
Mm.
They build their
Mm.
business based on what they're committed to.
Wow.
Big
That's
difference, right? So if I'm committed to an outcome, I'm committed to leaving a legacy, I'm committed to changing some other people's lives, I'm committed to building uh, uh, more success for myself and for my family. I'm going to do it based on my commitment, not based on how I'm feeling. Because the truth is, we're human beings. Our emotions go up and down. And
right.
when you have your own business, no matter what the business is, if you had a Subway franchise, or if you were a business coach, or you're building a network marketing business, or whatever,
Mhm.
there are going to be many days that you're going to not feel like building your business.
Right.
And depending on the type of business you have, some businesses allow you to take those days off. Other
Mhm.
businesses, unless you want to lose all your money, you can't.
Right. Right.
Because if you do, you're done.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
incredible. So, somewhat of a segue to that, but you've talked about, some positive narratives and thoughts like that. Um, You talk about limiting beliefs and subconscious patterns. What was
Yeah.
one of your own limiting beliefs that you had to shake off? I know that, we heard the journey, right? The success story and that kind of stuff, but I'm sure along the way, whether that was quitting or, whatever the case was, what was one of your own limiting beliefs that you had to overcome and how did that impact your success?
Yeah, I don't know that they ever really go away.
It's
Like you
valid.
don't shake them. They're just those tapes. Like even today, I'm 67 years old, and I haven't had a job now since 1996. I think
Mhm.
1996 was, and I had seven. That was after 17 years of work.
Right.
Um, and you look back and like you start noticing things. Like I used to look. Some people look at their parents and they go, I want to be
Hmm.
just like my parents.
Hmm.
Other people look at their parents and go, I don't want to be anything like them.
Hmm.
And I love my father to this day. I've lost my father a number of years ago, but I love my father to this day.
Hmm.
And I appreciate so many of the lessons he taught me, but many of the lessons he taught me are not lessons that are conducive to building a successful business.
Right.
Because he did
Right.
he really he worked a job most of his life.
Right.
And so, you know, things like, oh gosh, there's so many.
Let me interject
I,
something here while you're collecting thoughts because I think it does relate to this. I've been rereading and listening to the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I wonder if you might have maybe whether it's a
oh yeah.
similar thing, but just something to that effect because I feel like similar story. I lost my dad a few years ago as well. Love him to death, still to this day, one of my absolute heroes. And given the knowledge that he had and the skill set that he had, he did the absolute best that he could, and I am a better man because of that. However, he did not walk the same path that I did, right? He was not entrepreneurial. He did not own a business, right? So while he did his best to give advice and feedback on that, that's not really a path that he had walked before. So it's not that he didn't want me to succeed in that kind of stuff, but that was just a journey that I had to kind of learn from other people to walk that path because that is something that was kind of out of his knowledge level as to what how do I really help him along this path. So I don't know, I'm not sure if that fits into kind of where your thought process was
Yeah,
going, but
like
that's my own personal thing.
before social media, before the internet and all that, before the ability to access information and knowledge outside of your little home and your school,
Hmm.
get your information from your parents
Right.
years ago, that's how it was. And so I wasn't exposed to entrepreneurship. And
Hmm.
so all the tapes that run in my head was like, the typical cliche things, you
Hmm.
know, get a job, work hard, save
Hmm.
your money, those
Right.
kinds of things. And that's a good model for paying your bills. But then at some point, and I
Mm.
knew this, like I have the ability to look into the future and see what's
Right.
my future going to be if I stay on this track. And I,
Right.
I remember sitting in a cubicle at the state of Arizona, and there was this guy named Elvio. I was in my 20s. He was
Hmm.
smoking. This was back when you could smoke inside the buildings, the federal
Okay.
the city buildings. He was
Right.
smoking a cigar in his cubicle right across from me, and it's like the place was just filled with smoke. And I remember, and he was probably in his 50s, and I was remembering myself, and I'm in my 20s, thinking, if I keep doing this, I'm going to be like Elvio. I don't want to be like
Right.
Elvio.
Right.
I want to be able to travel the world. I want to be able to see things that most people don't get to see and
Right.
experience things that most people don't get to experience.
Sure.
That was a vision, a dream that I had that was really out of reach, and it was so
Mm.
different than the family that I grew up in. My
Hmm.
dad used to take us on one vacation a year. We would never get on an airplane because he didn't have the money to buy airplane tickets for us.
Right.
So we take
Right.
1 2 week driving vacation per year, and that's the life we lived in. It was a great
Hmm.
life. We enjoyed it,
Right.
but
Right.
that wasn't. I had bigger dreams, right?
Hmm. Right.
So one of
Right.
the things that I had to break through was learning to dream, like really
Mm.
expand my
Okay.
dreams and getting around people that had bigger dreams. The other thing was to align myself with business opportunities that pay passive income. Like you could
Mm.
write a book, and then if you can get that book to sell without you having to sell it, that could create a passive income. Funnel building and selling something through the funnel, the TikTok shop,
Mm.
the Instagram or the stores that you can set up online that people buy stuff from you. You could buy vending machines. You could buy 10
Mhm.
vending machines for $10,000 each and sell
Right.
things that way, and then hire somebody to collect the money and maintain the machines and make sure the product gets stocked and all that. You could do a
Mhm.
network marketing company and let the
Mhm.
company do all that stuff for you and develop a residual check from that. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but I had to align myself. I had to, and I did this very early on. It just took me a long time, but I had to
Mhm.
I had to align myself with a company that threw off passive income. If I wanted to accumulate an income stream, my first goal was to match my bills. So if I thought if I could get my passive income to equal my bills, I would be financially free. So
Right.
if my bills at that time were $3,000 a month, I needed to create a $3,000 a month. Actually, I needed to create a $4,000 a month residual income because I had taxes to pay on it.
Mhm.
Right. So that was my first goal to get there. And it took, and I wouldn't quit. I just wouldn't quit until that happened. And it took me many, many years, but it did eventually. And now since 1996, I've had a large passive residual income, and I can, I build my business because I love it. I don't know what else I would do. I enjoy it, but I
Mhm.
don't have to do that anymore. And if
Right.
I want to take a week or 2 weeks off or a month off, I can do it after years of investing
Sure.
in my education, and my businesses.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that um I don't know. I mean, you talked earlier about, the 11 companies, the 11 failures. I mean, I'm sure that you probably thought of them as learning points, right? I mean, you learned
Sure.
little things
Oh yeah,
along the way, but had you not gone through that and got to the 12th company with the endurance and with the stick-to-itiveness to kind of follow through, then it wouldn't happen. And I wonder if there's that image. I'm a terrible artist, but it's like this guy with a pitch axe kind of digging through this,
yes,
and like all of the stuff is like right here, and he's gone all this way, but he stops, and like all of the dreams, all of the goals, all the gold, everything that he wanted are just that one further thing. So I wonder if I think it's sad that there's probably a lot of people that are quitting, just this razor's edge away from success, but they don't continue on along those paths to get to that point where they can live the life of their dreams.
yeah, yeah. And but the problem is, as an entrepreneur, you don't know. Like
No, you don't.
you don't know if you're 3 feet from gold.
Hmm.
You don't know.
Right.
But you're learning along the way. And most successful entrepreneurs have way more failures than they do successes. And
Absolutely.
I have a very long list of failures. Like I could
Right.
it's much longer than what we've even talked about here. It's not just 11
Mhm.
network marketing companies that I failed at, 11 network marketing companies that I never sold a single product or never signed up a single person. People don't even believe that. But if you meet the people that are, some of them are still in my life today, that they were around me when I was going through all that stuff, the number of investments that I've made that have failed, it's crazy. But when you talk to people that have succeeded as an entrepreneur, it's usually one or two or three businesses out of 100 that make up for all the losses, and then a whole lot more.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not so much just bouncing from business to business, but it's finding something that you can get passionate about and then sticking with it over the long haul and
Right.
recognize that you need to be the cause of the success of your business.
Hmm. Right.
It's not a lottery.
Right. No, absolutely. I always also think of it as kind of a sports analogy of in baseball, if you hit 30% of the pitches that are coming your way, you are an all-star. That's incredible. And but we don't correlate that. We don't apply that in our own life. We're figuring if we're not hitting 80, 90% of the balls hit our way, the business opportunities, the entrepreneurial things, the investments, then oh, you're a failure. I think that's an unfair bar to set for ourselves because to your point, there's going to be more failures than wins. The difference between those that press on and get to the point where they are living their dreams is the ones that continue on past those.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
I look
Um,
at, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different things here. Thinking about, legacy and grind and this kind of stuff. I would imagine as you are, I don't know, transitioning, you said for the last 30 years about you've been kind of living this life and yes, you're still working, but you're doing it out of a desire to kind of continue helping people. For those, and we kind of asked this earlier, but specific to legacy, what would be the very first step that you would recommend somebody that maybe is wanting to dive into the entrepreneurial journey? Yes, everything we just talked about, right? Stick to it, this kind of stuff. But what is some other concrete steps that they could take to start building their legacy?
Well, first thing I want to just say is you want to see people as a resource for giving, not for a resource for getting.
I love that.
See people as a resource for giving, not as a resource for getting. And then in terms of some steps, the first would be, even though you may not be clear on this, and even though it might change, start with, your dreams a little. Like take a look at what you want to achieve or accomplish. And it can be very simple. It can be very basic. It can be one or two things. Like you want to bring your spouse home. Your spouse doesn't like, that might be one thing. I mean, I don't know. Right. I'm just throwing out. It could be that you haven't taken a vacation with your whole family in years and you want to take your family to Disney World. It could be that. It could be you want to leave a legacy by going down to South America and go on a mission trip and build some churches. I don't know. It could be anything, right? Right. It might be that you want to learn to fly airplanes. What is it that why are you doing this? Like what is the reason for you building your business? Maybe it's that you're not going to be around forever and you want your family to be well taken care of. Right. Something were to happen to you. Yeah. Or you've worked a job for 40 years and you just haven't really been able to enjoy life the way you believe you should be or could be. And you want to take the last 10 years of your life and travel the world. Right. So whatever it is, but write those things down. That's the first thing. The second thing is begin to focus on adding contacts, adding relationships to your Rolodex, like meeting new people, getting to know new people. Go to coffee with somebody every day or do a virtual coffee with them online. One person a day, 15 minutes a day, meet somebody new and spend some time with them. And if you did that, if that's all you did was 300 days a year, spend 15 minutes online or in person with somebody and just learn from them, ask them questions and listen. If that's all you did, that will take you to your dreams because you'll meet the right people. Right. The third thing is, find a business that will produce, even if you've got a job right now, if you're paying your bills by doing whatever it is you do something else on the side, a few hours a week that's going to throw off some passive income. Start studying residual income. Start studying passive income. So if you, for example, if you save, or let's just say this, let's say you have a residual check of $300 a month. $300 a month is, what is that per year? 3,600.
Yep, I think so.
3,600 a year, and 3,600 is 10% of 36,000 and 5% of 72,000. So if you have a residual income of $300 a month, that's the equivalent of saving $72,000 at 5% interest.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because people will save money their whole life, which most people don't, but this is their goal. They save money their whole life to be able to pull income out of that money without touching the principal. So if you have $72,000, that's going to produce about a $300 a month income. But if you get involved in a business that can produce a $300 a month income, how have you done at saving that $72,000 or $600 a month, $144,000? Right. Right. Yeah. So that's because the truth is, like, I could not see myself saving millions of dollars when I was making $14,000 a year. Right. It's just not going to happen. Right. But I could involve myself in a business now and work it over a 5 to 10 year period and create something significant that way. So that, and then, yeah. So, yeah. So there's that. I don't even remember what your question was.
No, it's all
I
good. This is brilliant stuff. I love it. I was asking just kind of where to start, and you laid out a very, very
okay.
specific way to do that. So thank you very much. That was wonderful.
And then
Um,
there'd be one more. The one more thing would be to immerse yourself in personal development,
mm,
because all your limitations are based on, like, if you get stuck at a certain point, um, and that point could be, I can't make anything work. I can't make any business work, or whatever it is. I'm making $1,000 a month at my business and I can't get past that. It all rides on your personal development. It just means that you're limited because you need to grow. And so growing means reading and going to events and listening to audios,
mhm.
and learning from people that have done it, people that have gone before you that have done it, and you will rise to your level of growth, of personal
Mm,
growth.
that's great.
I kind of envision a stack of books, and that my level of success will be determined by how high that stack of books is that I've read.
Love it. Just as a side note here, have you ever heard of Headway?
Yes, I have it on my phone. I've
Love
used
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
great.
great. When you can't read a book but you're on a walk or whatever, you can listen to and that's fantastic. So just a little side
Yeah,
note there. That's a
yeah,
great one if you ever there's other ones out
it's
there, but
great.
it's a wonderful one. Um, Again, reading kind of through some different things. You are a big supporter of Kiva.org. I was thinking more along the lines of like an educational thing, but that's not exactly what it is. What is it about Kiva that just speaks to your heart? And tell us a little bit about that if someone was wanting a really impactful way to give back.
Kiva is incredible. I've been associated with Kiva for 20 years. When I wrote Beach Money, I had decided that I'm going to take the profits from Beach Money, from the book,
Hmm.
and help entrepreneurs start businesses, not for personal gain, not for me, but I was
Hmm.
looking for a way to I was looking for a way to be able to fund people in developing countries that wanted to start businesses. And
Okay.
in the process of doing that, we tripped across an organization called Kiva.
Hmm.
Kiva is the largest micro lending organization in the world.
Hmm.
They've loaned over $1 billion to uh, startup entrepreneurs in developing countries primarily, but now even in some of the impoverished areas in the United States, where somebody wants to start a shoe repair stand in a small town in Africa, or
Okay.
someone wants to buy a cow to be able to provide milk for their community, or whatever it is. It can be
Hmm.
as little as $25 loans. So if you
Okay.
go to the website, there are hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs on there that are needing money, little small amounts of money, in developing countries to start businesses. And so what we do through the sale of Beach Money is we help these people with loans through the website and through the organization. And we've helped over 10,000 businesses start. About 93% of the money gets paid back. It goes right back into our account, and then we reloan it back out. So I
Okay.
just got a notification this morning that $2,400 just got paid back by one of the entrepreneurs. And
Mm,
now I've got my bookkeeper will go in and she'll reloan that money. And you
that's
see who
great.
you're loaning it to, the specific entrepreneur. You see what their plan is online, their
Hmm.
pictures. They've got pictures of themselves and what they're wanting to do online. And so if you've got kids, young kids, and you give them $25 and you say you can't spend this money, but this money is money that you can go onto their website
Hmm.
and figure out who you want to help.
Hmm. I love
So
it. I love it. I've never heard of that. I mean, it reminds me a lot of like Kickstarter, right? Kickstarter is more of kind of like, hey, starting a business or a product here in the States. I think most of them are. But I love this idea because it is giving back to people that, probably would not have connections for this level of funding and that kind of stuff, but puts it on a global stage where other well-meaning people can go out there and say, hey, I see what you're doing. That's something I want to put, give you a leg up on. That's brilliant. I love that.
for over $350,000 we've loaned to small business entrepreneurs all over the world.
That's
And
incredible.
for a while, we were the largest. I haven't checked lately, but Beach Money was the largest donor of in Kiva for a couple of years.
That's
Number one.
really, really cool.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm glad I asked that question. So I'm hoping that other people like myself that, have other things that they're helping people with, but maybe had never heard of that. Now they're aware of that, and we can all kind of go in there and continue that good work. So thank you for that, doing that, and also for letting us know about some of that wonderful stuff. I'd love to shift gears a little bit on you, kind of back into my world, which is kind of education, but also technology and this kind of workspace. So obviously AI is here to stay. I think I'd seen a quote of yours of the idea of I've always equated to standing in the brakes of a wave and just trying to stop things is kind of a fool's task, because you're not going to stop it, right? AI technology is going to happen. I always say, let's figure out how to leverage that rather than limit that. So I would love to hear your thoughts on whether that's AI, remote work, just the future of this. How do you think that's going to impact kind of the space that you're in and that you speak to of side incomes, passive incomes, residual? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I'm probably not the best person to ask, because I tend to go back to old school relationships. I think the more things are created in the virtual world that aren't real, and I heard a statistic recently that 70% of the things that we're viewing on social media right now are being created by AI, and there's so much false information out there, and I don't think it's going to get any better.
No.
I think that authenticity will be the currency of the future as it relates to as we go further and further down that rabbit hole. Is that the right word? Yeah. Is that the right word? Rabbit hole?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. The more we go down the AI path. Now, I use AI every day. I use that automation every day, but I use Chat GPT, and I pay $10 or maybe $20 a month, and I use it for a lot of different things, mostly for research, because I think it's just like way better than Google. But if I'm looking for a quick outline, it learns from me, so it knows a lot about me because I put stuff in there. And so when I ask it for something, it sorts through everything that I've put into my Chat GPT, and it helps me come up with content outlines, sometimes social media posts, things like that. As far as the future goes, I think it's just, even the experts, I've learned over the past 10 years that even the experts really don't know what they're talking about.
That's very true.
They really don't.
Right.
And everybody is speculating. I don't think anyone really knows what the impact is going to be, for the most part, in their industry or their profession. So
I would love to get your thoughts on this, because this I saw this from a friend this morning, and I think it kind of speaks to your heart of that idea of nothing's going to replace the personal touch. So AI will automate everything except faith, integrity, and the personal touch that comes from serving with love. There's nothing that AI can do for that. It may help you to wordsmith and do this and that, but if we think back on the conversation of everything that you mentioned that help you get to the point that you are right now, following up, being intentional, being giving that personal touch, reaching out not only to provide a sale, but just saying, hey, how's John? Last time I heard that he broke his leg, or whatever the case is, something to that effect. Would love to get your thoughts on that aspect of it.
No, I think the real is always going to win. Real is always going to win in the long term. That I believe that. So the more things that are created that are not real, the more there'll be a percentage of the population that will gravitate, like want to be pulled out of that matrix and want to have real human connection, connection with real people. And I think that's where the businesses that focus on that are the ones that are going to have the real winning strategy, I believe. So, but
I completely agree.
I'm not an expert by any means.
It's all good.
I'm floundering through this. I'm floundering through this like everyone else.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I think I agree with you. I think even the quote unquote experts are kind of just guessing, right? I mean, we won't know until
they're self-proclaimed. Everybody's a self-proclaimed expert. I don't ever profess to know what I really, I fumbled my way here, just like all of us do. Some of us choose to not give up and continue to fumble our way.
I love it.
There's certain things you find out you're good at a few little things. Like I know what I'm good at, but I'm also know that I'm not. There's a lot of things I'm not good at.
Focus on what you do. I have a friend that says do what you do best and outsource the rest.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yep.
So
Things that
I
you
would,
love to do, the things that you love to do that you're good at.
right. Well, and I actually have a quote from you. Life should be enjoyed every day, not endured. Does that sound about right?
All right. Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. Okay. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for this time together. I would love to, like I mentioned before we got on here, I'd love to get your thoughts on our three key questions, just because this is something we do with all of our guests. But before I dive into that, just thank you so much for the wisdom and just sharing your heart and your experiences thus far. I know personally I will look back on this conversation multiple times just for little nuggets of truth. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing with me.
I appreciate the invitation. This is great.
Absolutely. So let's wrap it up with our three key questions. Who is a leader, Jordan, that you most admire and try to emulate?
Uh, Richard Branson comes to mind.
Okay.
And I actually through because Richard Branson was somebody that I read his books and I was really interested in him. You know, I would
Hmm.
study, and then I figured out a way that I could actually spend some time with him. And so
Hmm.
I I ended up I it's a long story, so I don't really even
Hmm.
want to go into it right now. But I ended up on Necker Island with him, and I spent 10 days with him, morning, noon, and
Wow.
night, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Had a lot of personal time with him.
Right.
We played chess. We played chess multiple times. We were
Wow.
out on his boat with his wife. I got to know him. I was at the Virgin Galactic space launch where he went up into space.
Hmm.
And I was somebody that was pulled in a lottery of 60
Hmm.
people and got to see him go to space. But then I was at the after party with the Virgin Galactic employees, and I got to know all
Wow.
that. But
That's incredible.
here's the thing about Richard. He's very present with people. I
Mm.
watched him, observed him, and I even with me, it's like he came down. I was down at breakfast one morning, and he came down and he sat. It was just the two of us, and we sat for an hour and a half, just the two of us. And he just asked. This is a guy who's a multi-billionaire. He just
Right.
asked me questions about me. He was
Wow.
interested in me, and I like to emulate that. I like to be present with people, and he also has a lot of passion projects that don't make him a lot of money, but they're
Hmm.
good they're good for the world,
Hmm.
and I like that about him as well. There's a lot I could go on because I learned a lot about him, and I got to like him and I got to know him, and I was at his birthday party on one of his cruise ships with his
That's pretty
family and
cool.
his friends and his
Mm.
business associates. And
That's awesome.
he talked. He does. It doesn't matter. Some entrepreneurs will only hang out with people that are as successful as them or more
Hmm.
successful as them.
Hmm.
Richard talks to everybody.
That's awesome.
He's curious and he's inquisitive. I love
Mm.
that. Yeah.
I heard a while ago that our focus should be to be interested rather than interesting. I think a lot of
Yeah.
times we spend a lot of time trying to think of like the best question to ask or the best, way to make an impression with somebody. And to your point, the impact that his inquisitiveness and presence and just wanting to learn more about you made way more impact than him, having quotable lines. Yeah, I love it. All right, second question here. Thank you for that. Second question, while I erase this, what learning has most impacted you in the last year?
So I read a book called The Third Door by
Okay.
Alex. Alex. I can't remember Alex's last name right now, but it's
Okay.
called The Third Door. Easy to find. And although I didn't agree with everything in the book, I loved the concept of the book. This is a kid that was on I think he was on the Price is Right. I think he was on a show. He was on a game show when he was a young kid.
Hmm.
He decided at one point that he wanted to interview powerful, successful people and write a book about it. And he
Okay.
had to get to those people. And he realized, and he also was a nightclub promoter at one point.
Mm.
And he said there's three doors. He said there's the door that everybody stands in and waits in line to get into the club. There's long lines to get into the club, and some people get turned down and they'll stand in line for hours and never get in. Then there's the second door. That's the door where the celebrities go, and it's the VIP door. And he said there's a third door, and this is the door that people enter. It's a different way of thinking, and so that's
Mm.
what the book is about. It's about that
Okay.
third door and how he learned the concept of the third door to get to the celebrities that he needed to get to write his book. And the book is hilarious, and it's
Okay.
it's a fun book to read, and there's a lot of lessons in it. And Alex Bananian, Banyan, or something like that, Bananian.
Okay. Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. That looks really cool. Wonderful.
Good.
Thank you for that. All right, and the last one, again, I kind of gave you a little bit of a preview of this one. You said this one might be a little bit tough, so hopefully we've warmed up a little bit, and you had some time to kind of process this one a little bit. But because we are the Empowered Learning Podcast, I would love to hear your thoughts on what you would do to empower learning for future generations.
How do you empower learning for future generations? I think that no matter what you do, I had a boss one time that said, your job is to replace yourself.
Okay.
And in the job world, that's a very non-conventional philosophy, because in the job world, you don't want to replace yourself, because if you replace yourself, you're out of a job.
Right.
He said you become more valuable when you replace yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that in answering this question, how would you empower learning for a future generation, is to adopt a mindset of teaching people what you learn, teaching other people what you learn, as a philosophy, as an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And by replicating yourself, even if there's no personal benefit to you on the surface, if you do that, you'll become more valuable and you'll leave a legacy for future generations.
I love it. Perfect. That's that. You did great. You did great. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for your time and again for your wisdom. This has been an absolute delight and pleasure. I look forward to sharing this with everybody. I can't imagine this is not going to be one of our best episodes ever. So thank you so much for your time. Have a blessed day, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Sounds great. Looking forward to meeting in person at some point.
I would love that. All right. Take care, Jordan. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into this conversation with the incredible Jordan Adler. I hope you're walking away not just inspired, but activated to rethink how you build your income, your time, and your impact. Be sure to grab a copy of Beach Money if you haven't already. It's a game changer. And if you know someone who needs a fresh perspective on freedom and financial growth, send them to this episode. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and as always, stay empowered.